Hello, everyone. We're watching Things About the Thing. The game.
Wolfie, I'm going to need your blood sample in a heated coil.
How about no?
That's what a thing would say.
I know very little about the thing other than that it's a thing that disguises itself as people. And yeah,
It's
that's
like
not...
infected people?
I don't know. I haven't watched the movie, actually, is one thing. I do have this game, and if you guys want to watch me play it, well, come over to my Twitch, and you guys can watch me do that for fun. Also, I just had a thought, and I need to eventually get my plushie made. Eventually.
Oh?
I have a plushie design, I just need it being made into an actual plushie. I just need to get into contact with someone who knows how to make plushies. Morally...
Just a heads up, plushies tend to be fairly expensive to produce.
I know, but I want to make them so that I can hand... I want to make 3. 1 for myself, 1 for a loved one that I'll have one day, and 1 for the original maker, because she did a good job with the design. Anyway.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Can I get one?
If I can make that many, yeah.
Cool.
It's, I think I showed you the design. It's on my, usually right here. Or, no, you can't see that right now. Anyway, we'll continue.
Let's continue, yes.
And what?
It's some kind of unidentified craft. It looks, well, like a UFO. Colonel?
Why the fucking Goosebumps theme?
Because it's a horror game. If I remember correctly, every time Mandalore does a horror game, he does the Goosebumps theme.
Haunting Hour is right there.
Listen, I don't even know what that sounds like.
Out of all the games to bring back for the modern audience, The Thing is an interesting...
Yeah, this game got remastered by Night Dive, who also did the remaster of, what was it? They did the remaster of System Shock, which I recommend you play, Medica, because it's actually a really good game.
I've been meaning to get to the point where I would play System Shock, because, like, System Shock's a classic. System Shock it's the grungy sci-fi horror game of the past millennia.
Basically, the best way to think of it is it's the first RPG shooter of its style. In time.
Of its style. You say that like there's anything quite like System Shock.
Well, then came BioShock, then came Fallout 3, then came, you get the point, later on. System Shock was the first one of its kind.
Fair. I will say I'm not very BioShock.
Basically, BioShock was later created by the people who made System Shock. They're just under a different company name. Like, you get
Infinite killed the franchise.
You see that, well, Infinite was really, really bad in terms of story, but...
That's because Infinite was up itself, but we can discuss that another day on a video about Infinite.
Yeah, I was going to you can tell the names of those same people who are making it. System Shock, BioShock.
Interesting choice. Because the movie is gorgeous, timeless, has amazing effects, and you can see its influences in tons of games.
Oh yeah, it would
The
influence.
Game is a 2002 title, which was the era of god-awful movie licensed games, with a few exceptions. So, which one was The Thing? I guess that's always the question.
Yeah.
I have played this game before, and I vaguely remembered it. Mainly that it had neat ideas, but was inconsistent and frustrating. So when Night Dive offered me a copy of the remaster, I grabbed the original, downloaded what fixes there were for it,
from what I can tell, you also get flamethrowers.
And played it the whole way through. And the game was way more ambitious than I remembered, and also way worse.
Oh.
Hey, it looks like your girl.
But having played them back to back, I know way worse for it, and played it the whole way through.
So
and
we played the original.
Was way more ambitious than I remembered, and also way worse.
Hey, it looks like your girl.
So yeah, this is the original.
But having played them back to back, I know just how much the remaster has improved things, and what's still the same. So, no nostalgia goggles, I'll go through what's different, and we'll take it
That's
to
a
the
very
beginning.
good way. Sorry, it's late. That's a very good way to go about comparing them.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is interesting that a lot of movie games are obviously horrible, Like, with the exceptions of probably this and the Spider-Man game and a few others. The Spider-Man 2 is wonderful.
Spider-Man?
Spider-Man 2. The game.
Right, that's the one where it's like if you touch every hint icon, they'll say something different, and then you do, and it when 200 hint icons later, something different.
Oh my god. What? What the hell?
Now, I don't speak Norwegian, but that delivery always cracked me up.
Wait, this is supposed to be
we're gonna glimpse the
Norwegian?
events that happened in the Norwegian
Yes.
camp. In the
Welcome
movie,
to
the
Norway.
Outpost 31 team only investigated the aftermath, which is
Oh,
great, because in the
yeah.
end, you know what happened. And on rewatch, you could pick up more details on how it went down. So for the game, it's a nice cold open to introduce players who don't know about the movie to the horrible gene chimera they'll be dealing with. And
Dear
at the same
God.
time, it's a fun extra detail for
Yep.
fans of the movie. Because we don't need to know everything that happened in detail, or
Welcome
if you
to
were gonna do
Norway.
that, don't fuck over the team making great effects for it.
Ugh.
Jesus
Yeah, I'm
Christ.
having a hard time looking
Then
at
comes the
that.
proper protagonist.
I'll admit those are good effects, but they're too good, I will say. Ugh.
It's a horror movie, Woofy.
I know!
Why?
I know! It's just, they also apparently made a prequel. Which was
Captain
bad.
Blake. A Colonel Whitley
Yeah.
has sent him with special
'cause they-
forces teams to find out what happened to the
So
Norwegian.
the way I
and
heard it
American
phrased is
bases.
pretty simple. The classic one, no one can really be said to be making dumb choices. Everything feels right. No one's grabbing the idiot ball. They're just in a situation that they are not prepared for.
Yeah.
The prequel, people are grabbing the idiot ball left and right,
Oh.
and they took out the good special effects.
Oh, well that sucks.
Comes your proper
I'll watch the movie eventually. It will be hard for me, but I'll watch it
protagonist,
eventually.
Captain Blake. A Colonel Whitley has sent him with special forces teams to find out what happened to the Norwegian and American bases.
Okay.
Even with bad weather visibility from a helicopter, it's clear they've been exploded apart. So Blake and his troops
Ooh.
are dropped in to poke around the wreckage and look for clues.
Explosions.
Unlike many survival horror games where it's you alone in the dark, The Thing is a squad-based third-person shooter,
Oh.
complete with managing their health and inventory, stopping them from panicking, and making sure they are still your squad. Since they're
I mean, honestly, this works perfectly for The Thing, because quite literally, if you wander off and they don't follow you, are you sure that's really them?
Well, at that point, you shoot on sight.
But they could still be human.
Do you fucking risk that?
Well, do you?
Not with The Thing.
Oh
There's
my
a
God.
chance they got the old Blair fingering when you weren't paying attention. It turns
Oh.
out if you start growing extra arms, you don't have to wait for a DD-214. It's easy to see all kinds of potential.
I don't know what a DD-214 is.
Probably some sort of discharge form.
Probably.
This, and ways it can all go wrong. And to Night Dive's credit, along with the original
Tell me
computer
in the
artworks
comments.
team members they also had on board, this part of the game has more going for it and is way less broken than it used to be. Though
That's
I do
good.
want to start with the visuals as
Yep.
usual, especially since
Ice
this game has
cold.
undergone an
Who
overhaul.
the fuck installed that
Everything
machine at the
from
North
lighting-
Pole? Who the fuck installed arcade machines at the North Pole?
Listen, you get very bored in the North Pole.
Do you know how hard it is to ship an arcade machine?
No.
I do. I did it.
Well then.
and shadows to reworking textures and adding specular maps for some nice
Oh, dear
shininess.
God.
Not to mention all the UI and control adjustments, which just makes the game smoother to play. There are other new graphics options to tinker with, and some gameplay altering ones like glowing item pickups, which you can turn off if you don't want. The game
Oh.
looks sharper, runs smoother, and is missing some technical visual hiccups the original had. Though
That's
out of
nice.
everything, I think the new specular maps and the new lighting are the big winners. All the variations of the thing you fought had good detail for the time, but they did lack that wet, gross effect that's fully here now. There's plenty of times you get attacked by tiny head crab.
I'd rather
Yeah, no, that is
things,
disgusting.
And it was hard to tell what they
Yeah.
were in a bad way, where here you can make out so much more detail.
I'd
I'm
ra-
sure some are still an amalgamation of
not.
tongues and flesh, but now you can more easily make out the human heads running at you, along with all the other small thing types there are, along with brand new variations they've made for this remaster.
Oh, wonderful.
The lighting improvements add a lot of spectacle to your muzzle flashes and flamethrower. They did cast light before, but the effect wasn't as dramatic. The light doesn't spread
Oh.
as far, and you don't have all the dynamic shadows reacting to it like you do now. A good amount of the game
Oof.
was, and still is, going through metal corridors, and this new detail does help to keep some areas less static. but
That's
some
nice.
areas that had good atmosphere before are way elevated with this. It's not in every single scene looks more amazing now remaster. There are definitely areas where it can be hard to tell, but I get the sense it was from wanting to remain faithful to the art style, shortcomings and all, to not get a Halo CE situation.
That makes
like
sense.
Keeping the weird posters or the stretched textures.
Night Dive is actually really good at this, where they remake the soul of the game while still updating it for modern audiences, for like modern players.
Understood. Understandable.
That's what they did with System Shock, because the old one is very dated, because it was the first of its time.
Can they update X-Wing and TIE Fighter?
If they get the license, maybe.
For
Fuck it. I'll
Those
play
were all
the
in the
classics.
original. They're just more HD here. There's an interesting
Oh,
approach.
also they might be Konami might be releasing like 10 games, remasters of 10 old Yu-Gi-Oh games.
Might. I thought they already announced that.
Oh, they did? Oh, well.
Because when it comes to small throwaway assets
I'll
like that
try
from the
them.
old game, they kept it how it was. But where they did make those kinds of changes was to
Can't wait
align
to
it
see
more
how
with the movie.
Konami
Even
fucks
the
up
level
a
design,
GBA
especially
port.
early on, had some changes made to throw in some extra detail and little bits like that in there. They could have just been assets that were cut down for performance. It's a cool approach if that's what was happening, but there are two changes I find strange. And I have a theory for both of them.
Okay.
In the original's first few levels, the outside areas are gray, murky, and, well, dark. It's night near the South Pole. But in the remaster, it's a lot more blue.
Oh.
And this is with color grading off because...
Oh, it's
well,
the
that makes it a
South
lot
Pole.
more
Okay, never
extreme.
mind. My
Could it
complaints
be
with the
it's
arcade
just-
machine are now invalid.
Are they?
I don't know.
Some Shock
Okay.
remake demo returning for revenge? It's not bad, and I might not have noticed it hadn't I just played the games back to back.
Okay.
But I was curious if there could be more to it other than the obvious answer, which is it makes it look colder. Again, go back to the movie, and at night the blue is everywhere.
Oh,
In the commentary,
they
John
point
from-
Carpenter talks about how they used airport lights, both on camera and behind the camera, to light the exterior scenes.
So they-
Some of the most famous
fuck?
lines in the movie have it creeping into the background. Even if it doesn't make sense for the lights you see to have it reaching that far, it's always there. So the original color here is more realistic, but the
they're
remaster's
more
lighting looks
faithful
more
to
like
the
thing.
movie.
They didn't crank it to be as dramatic, but that is a
Yeah.
subtle adjustment. The other is even tinier, but it is in your face most of the game. On Blake's backpack, he had a cool little Arctic Marine logo, which now just says US. For one,
Okay.
it's more historically accurate, but I think there's even more to it. And it goes back to a line in the game's intro.
Okay. We'll make a sweep and report back.
Roger. Meanwhile, I'll check up on Alpha Team.
The Unseen Squad is Alpha Team, but Blake is leading this one. It's gotta be Bravo Team, if you're going
Yeah.
by the classic NATO phonetic alphabet. But
Yeah.
if your background is in
Everyone knows
software,
it.
what comes after Alpha? Beta.
I didn't know
Blake used
Quebec
to
was
lead
part
the
of it.
Beta Team.
It's part of the beta. But yeah, every NATO military uses the alphanumeric of Alpha Bravo Charlie. Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta Echo Foxtrot Hotel. You know what I mean. They all use it.
Yeah, but like you never hear it get to Quebec, so that's what surprised me.
Yeah, it's one of them. But yeah, they usually don't get to it.
It's such a small oversight that probably has a funny story about someone realizing this too late. So
Probably.
they both corrected that and made it more period accurate while they were at it. For me, this is part of the fun in really paying attention to what gets changed in a
Ooh, big
remaster.
gross
The
thing.
smallest changes can have some reasoning behind them.
True.
Alright, enough comparing for now. Let's talk about the game as is. All the environments are cold, dark, and
fuck explodes a
utilitarian.
computer?
In other words, it's
I don't know.
Antarctica.
It's cold
Despite
and
there
colder.
being a cold meter, you don't spend that much time outdoors. Most of the
feel
game you're
cold.
crawling through warehouses, hallways, laboratories, warehouses. Wait, that's not right. And
Ugh.
hangars, the warehouse of airplanes. There are still unique and striking locations to find, and the remaster has helped even more there. But its nature means that a lot of locations can feel generic and repetitive, especially in the last third of the game. Which
Ah.
does feel like a consequence of the location over anything else. But a lot of
Makes
locations
sense.
still feel gray and kind of barren, though there are a few other things causing it to feel that way. It's not like there are dull locations between great set pieces either, since even those are still pretty low. Most boss fights are in a small room or a small warehouse. There are some notable things you
I
can
mean, that
recognize
makes
in the
sense.
movie, down to really small details. But you leave the direct movie locations after about a half hour, so it's not carried by pointing at the screen for things you know, and games shouldn't rely on that anyways.
Yeah, true.
The standout
They should
here
never rely
is
on
the
that.
thing itself.
Good God. Ew.
There is no god of thing.
Kill it with fire. Kill it with everything.
Mostly fire. Fire with fire.
Kill it with all the fire. Is it dead?
Oh, he's being cheeky. There are the swarms of tiny thing beasts, which, besides the spitting ones, feel the same to fight, but the bigger walker variants have so much more going on visually. They might morph an appendage when damaged or spawn out smaller creatures. The way they can be a living soup of multiple people or animals or maybe other alien life. Every variation you see of them would fit right into the movie. And how unpredictably they can move and mutate also feels authentic when they're not running around like headless chickens. And that's not completely on them because all the enemy AI can be like this.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. Oh, yeah. But not for them.
I do get the idea. Where both things and enemy humans are trying.
Oh my god. The freaking Kool-Aid Man sound effect, really?
Always the Kool-Aid sound effect. It's the joke that never gets old.
Well, at some point.
Survive, so they run away from a fight sometimes.
But yeah,
the problem comes from just
this
how
makes
fast
sense. They're
the game jumps
animals.
that threshold. But
Somewhat.
regardless, their meat puppet lasagna forms always looked authentic, and that's even better now. As
well,
for
we don't know. How do we know how smart these things are? I actually don't know.
They were able, at least one of them was able to start reconstructing a UFO.
Okay, so yeah, they're really smart.
This is where things get rough. The voice acting is a blended range of hammy to alright. People like pointing out how Colonel Whitley is the smoking man from the X-Files.
Huh.
Probably because it's the one notable thing about this character.
Stand down, soldier. Good to see you, Doctor.
And Blake, he's part of the pantheon of Xbox Action Man characters.
Action Man characters.
What the hell? Yeah, we're not alone in the universe and all that crap. Check it out and move on. Let's skip the song and dance. Pierce is dead.
Yeah.
I just want to get the hell out of here.
There are a few standout lines, but you kind of know what to expect. As for the music, it's authentic to the movie, tense, fitting.
Area looks secure.
Oh, nice.
And you get maybe 10-second stings of it until it fades off into silence. It's so sudden and awkward.
That kind of stinks.
Yeah.
What makes it
Good
worse
use of
is
it.
how empty the sound design can be without it. And I don't mean empty like this. You know, where there's wind or tiny distant sounds. I mean where the only thing you hear is your footsteps, if you're lucky.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, that's never weird. I mean, the music sounds very intense right now.
Oh yeah, that's
And
ominous as
let me
fuck.
hear my item scrolling.
Oh. I always have a gun out when dealing with these things. These things.
And yes, the original game is like this too, but it was to the point where I thought something was bugged out. Like when a boss was revealed, it was dead silent. And watch how the camera whips around it. Like, that has to be an audio sting not playing right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it has a head of a dog right there. Dear god, that's gross.
I always assumed the game was bugged to shit and a bunch of audio wasn't playing for whatever reason. But now in the remaster, the truth is revealed. Okay, he may have exploded through the boxes, but there was a little music sting. Or
Okay.
at least there is now because the room is still silent.
Burn it!
Like, the fact the audio doesn't seem to have gone through much of an overhaul is crazy to me. Ennio Morricone's soundtrack for the movie is just iconic. I hate to
It is
say it,
weird that
but
they didn't
even
use
Among
it.
Us is outdoing the official game here.
I mean, yeah, Among Us actually
Yeah.
does have a creepy soundtrack.
And sure, something probably happened to stop the original game from getting the proper soundtrack, or really, any soundtrack. But if the remastered team wanted to keep the game like this, so many areas needed an audio pass. It's not tense atmosphere quiet, it's empty and undercooked quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's literally nothing happening. Just opening doors.
Opening doors, getting on floors, everybody's walking the dinosaurs.
No, that was the dating sim that we were having a
It
friend
either
play.
needed more layers of effects, or, look, let me
sorry,
turn on the music
what?
from earlier.
There's a dating sim that we're forcing my friend Fable to play, who's actually having fun with it. It's called I Want to Hug That Gator, and involves dino people.
Cool. Reminds me of that time my roommate tried to get me to play Necopara, and do you want to know how that went?
Terribly?
I have an undying hatred for Shigure. The rest of them are just dumb animals that don't know any better. Shigure can rot in hell.
Well then, that's an interesting perspective on Necopara.
They're explicitly cat intelligence that just happen to be able to talk. Which really makes the morality of the game trying to objectify them.
Makes things strange.
The lack of ambient audio was a huge pit in the game, and it barely seems to have been touched here.
Huh.
This place.
You're really trying to hit that one, dude.
For all that the improved lighting and textures did for the game, I was hoping
it
sound
was
would see
reaching
similar
out towards them.
improvements,
That's
even though all the
horrifying.
combat sound effects and the monsters are all fine. The game didn't have bad sound effects, it just didn't have enough of them. I don't know, maybe they also fell into the Hateful Eight. Actually,
Hateful
the one
Eight?
full song the original had was in the credits.
What the hell?
Yeah, that didn't make it back
What
for this
the
one.
fuck?
It was around that time, you know, when they
This
always
is more
had
fitting, but
soft
man, I like
rock.
that other song more. It's like I can feel the AMV trying to escape from it.
Wait, that's over the- I like soft rock. I actually do like soft rock quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, no, you're not fucking coming with me. No. Of course,
He
besides
doesn't trust
the visuals,
him.
the focus was on tweaking the gameplay.
Yeah, I was
It's
just
in a
saying,
funny
look the way
spot
you
because
started
the
getting
original game
choked.
sold over 1 million
Yeah.
copies and reviewed fairly well, but it's largely considered a cult game with a small following. There's a good reason for that. I've always
Okay.
thought it was underrated or maybe underappreciated for what it tried to do for the genre. After all, it's basically the only game like this.
True.
But really think about that. It's sold well, reviewed well, it's the only game like it. Games rip off innovations from each other constantly. It's what keeps things moving forward.
That is
the
true.
Deception formula really took off in multiplayer, but in single player, it wasn't touched even before those went off. But the squad control and trust mechanics are just one part of the game. The issue is, if the Riddick games or the new line Lord of the Rings games just had a new skin over them, they wouldn't be nearly as popular, but they'd still be fun and satisfying to play. Their core gameplay is strong enough. If this was called Alien Outpost 31 and had no IP attachment, I don't think it would have been received nearly as favorably. Like, the movie was famously panned before the Perception turnaround.
Instant chunk. What? Oh yeah.
That's actually something that gets fucking listed as a continuity error in on the TF wiki page for the bowling movie. Our protagonist Charlie has a Thing poster. However, the Thing was critically panned. There's no way in hell a kid in the 80s would have a fucking Thing poster on their wall.
Huh. I didn't
It's
know
like
that.
it wasn't popular.
It was one of those cult classics that people started to realize was good.
Yeah, I think at the time you were just like, oh, it's just overly gory. What the fuck is this? And now looking back, it's like, this is an expert display of practical effects, storytelling, and horror, all blending together perfectly.
It always hated when that kind of thing happens to something that's actually good.
I swish my wine glass and continue to analyze horror.
This is why I hate those games that are just walkathons for horror, when you have good games that actually use some of the mechanics, like Pathologic 2. You've never heard of Pathologic 2, have you?
No. You know what I have heard of?
What?
The Park.
Did have cool and exciting concepts, but I think it was also given a fuck ton of leeway. If anything, it wasn't even the developer's true vision for the game, which was held back by technology, design, and other constraints.
Okay.
But let's break things down to an action games based level, shooting the bad man. The original game had auto-aim, and in fact, that was the difficulty system. The easier you set it, the wider your firing cone. Enemies would run up, you'd auto-aim and gun them down, so you were free to maneuver without having to aim. There was a first-person aim toggle if you really wanted to be precise, but you couldn't move during that. Unless you turned on free aiming, which does look jittery when you move, but the game will control more like you'd expect it to. Here are the issues that come with that. Sometimes enemies will spray out blood, as most things do when you put rounds into them, but larger versions of the thing are a problem because you have to burn them when their health is low enough. If you set them on fire too early, it might not kill them, so you have to wait for the threshold. That threshold is when your reticle turns red in auto-aim mode. You could aim more freely, but were basically flying blind. Compared to basically knowing when your monster was preheated, you had to guess. And this was a cost of supplies and ammo that could be very tense in the right situations. This was also one of those games where if you reloaded, you lost the entire old magazine. So trusting a new squad mate with lots of ammo was risky since they wouldn't always drop.
Those are rare.
That would murder a modern shooter player.
Well, that's coming a bit back with Helldivers. That's actually a thing in Helldivers now.
Oh no!
You didn't know that?
No, I don't play Helldivers.
But yeah, that's actually a thing in Helldivers. You have to question whether it's worth just reloading.
There were some magical moments where I was low on health and ammo playing cat and mouse with the monster. Not knowing how close to death it was, but knowing how much I was did feel tense.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you try to play the entire game that way, you will start going bald. Because lack of feedback sucks if you're shooting at a boss and wondering if it's actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Or how about shooting at a gun turret where you watch the bullets phase through it like you're not doing any damage. That reticle color was often the only way to tell you were doing anything. But beyond being stiff in both modes, the actual shooting just felt bad. Aiming too far down in free aim or first person mode, you could easily kill yourself with your own fire, even if it looks like you're aiming level or in front of you. Weapons like the shotgun could frequently not fire because you're supposed to hold the attack button down. If you tried to click or hit a button to shoot every time, sometimes it wouldn't happen. But between all that, the checkpoints could be incredibly far from each other. You can be stuck between corpses, endlessly spawning enemies, even if you set them on fire. It has that kind of pacing where it feels like they're trying to stop rentals at the video store. Having a load button on death is part of the widescreen fan patch. Otherwise, you had to go back to the main menu to load a save. Then there were the other bugs and jank, like a boss being able to hit you in a cutscene or geometry.
Oh, that sucks.
And this is all before touching the squad system. Again, there's probably a reason this game sold so well, but is viewed as being a strange outsider cult game. It's kind of a nightmare to play through, but you can clearly see where things can be polished up. So let's start with those basics before getting into the squad system. For starters, the game just controls better. I do agree with this. It's kind of hard to market this at anything but the Thing, because the Thing's whole thing, quite literally, is we don't know who is and isn't it.
Yeah.
I feel like
it's not you.
Yeah, but you don't know of anyone else.
Combination of the old free aim system for looking around, combined with the auto-targeting for enemies getting close. It's a combat system I haven't felt since... Oh god, well, it's a lot better here.
Oh boy, Fire Warrior. We need to watch that eventually, don't we?
Because of this new system, you really have to try to hurt yourself with the flamethrower, compared to aiming fairly level and somehow still damaging yourself. Weapons like the shotgun now fire as quickly as you shoot, which is still kind of jank, but in a much better direction. You no longer keep hammering the button with nothing happening in a critical time. The magazine system has been completely abandoned, so you can reload whenever you want now. The maps also have way more health and ammo pickups than they used to the point where ammo was rarely an issue for me, even while I was still passing out ammo like candy. And that does include squad discipline. There's no death work at all now.
Squad discipline. Just shoot a grenade launcher at him.
When deciding when to use the flamethrower, the icon doesn't just turn red, a flame icon will pop up when it's time to cook. And there's now a dedicated key to switching to your flamethrower, and a quick heal key. And areas that once spawned enemies forever no longer do so.
Well, that's
There's
nice.
saves on top of the save stations. So what was known in scholarly circles as the Thing's stupid staircase is not too bad now. Visible feedback on enemies can still be bad, but it doesn't matter nearly as much, and bosses always have a visible health bar.
That's
Your squad's aim can be absurdly good now, and if they have the ammo, they'll clean up an area nicely. And going through the game, I realized I was barely taking damage. Areas that I had really had to power through before, I was just breezing by. Looking through the options, you can't go back to the no auto-targeting system at all. What you can do is limit your auto-aim range, and there is a new difficulty system, but it seems to increase damage to you and not much else. Even with those settings cranked, I was still flying through this game. And I know there are arguments that stiff controls make better horror games and stuff like that, but stiff controls were just one thing that made this game hard. I'd still die every once in a blue moon. But it feels like they sanded down every part that made the game hard individually. Like, you don't have to deal with magazines, and there's more health and ammo around, and the enemies hurt less, and the checkpoints are a lot less horrible, all umbrellaed under better aiming controls with quick swap keys. And again, I think the balance of difficult elements in the original was horrible, but these changes came across like they were all decided beforehand rather than, say, the new control scheme going in, and then iterating on those systems, seeing how it played then. And no, I'm not saying the original is the better game here. There are other improvements I haven't gone through yet, but it would be nice if there was a harder difficulty that maybe reduced supplies and brought back magazines. I don't know, just something to make the difficulty less of a 180 change. But let's move on to the big...
that's kind of a hard balance. Difficulty is always a hard balance when you're sure. Which this is why we have playtesters. For the most part.
Yes. They test the difficulty, and more importantly, they walk through that door 12 different ways.
Pretty
12
much.
different times. Until they're prepared to fight the door frame at their own house out of sheer spite.
Very possible. Anyway.
Selling point, the squad system, and rooting out the imposters. The game has some Half-Life influence, but more directly, opposing force. Since you played in the military this time, you would sometimes get squad mates. You had your standard Crayola connoisseurs, but also engineers for cutting open doors, and medics to heal you and the rest of the team. Nice. They were only around for small portions of the game, but more developed than Half-Life proper. The thing also has standard soldiers, engineers, and medics. But they're around a lot more frequently, and you often find new ones to recruit. But to make them more human, they're ruled by trust and fear. If your guys find something unsettling, you'll know about it because they start puking all over themselves. This is going to be happening a lot, sometimes mid-sentence, sometimes in the middle of a firefight. It's a lot. Roman bachelor parties didn't have this much vomit. And they do have a few other ways.
He said something right there.
But Roman bachelor parties didn't have this much vomit.
Not really, they were just entryways. What?
And they do have a few other ways of letting you know they're freaked out. And if their fear level gets too high, they'll go into a full-blown panic. They'll have breakdowns refusing to move, run away, fire their weapons off wildly. So you want to try and mitigate it before it hits this point. This is mainly done by giving them more ammo, gunning down aliens, but also keeping them away from areas that are too scary. Because even on the lower end, fear will still affect their accuracy. The reality is, with how small these areas can be, that's inevitable. It's kind of comedy gold, too, since sometimes
No, he is not okay, because he's going through areas in the thing.
Yeah, but it looks like the Ice Age, baby.
Yeah, kinda.
Just stunned silence for like
then
5
walk a few
seconds.
steps and go, that's good.
Oh man, we're gonna die here. Wow. What flavor of shit is that?
Skip flavor.
Damn, good shot.
Raspberry flavor.
But sometimes, whether your fault or not, they're gonna hit that breaking point.
Oh. Oh, yeah, this would make someone freak out.
Yeah.
If that happens, give them a shot of pure adrenaline.
That doesn't seem like it would work.
I'll pull it together.
Yeah, nice and calm.
I'm speedballing
tranquilizer. But it adds so much character and entertainment value. An area that you're not really paying attention to might suddenly scare the hell out of one of your squad mates. Because as a player, you might be getting numb to all the blood and gore, but they do help ground you there. You get how it should work.
I want to know why the fuck half the corpse is on a meat hook.
Oh no, that's the thing.
That's what the thing would do.
I have no idea. Honestly. They could be a lot smarter than we give them credit for, so, yeah.
Great idea, just one ahead of its time. You would need more control of your squad, better mitigation methods, and more intricate levels to really make it shine. Even in this state, I still think it's a good addition, but it's the trust system that was the most ambitious, and was the most broken. For starters, the thing is now operating more like a zombie virus. Like, you can convert into one.
I'm not going anywhere. It's over. What? It got me. I can feel it.
And it can now copy your clothing.
Yeah, I don't think it's that slow.
Wait, it couldn't do that before? Then again, I never thought the movie. I just
No,
thought...
it just fucking can... It takes organic matter and it makes it into things.
So it couldn't... Okay.
No, it's just wearing the clothing of the person who originally... It's just wearing the same clothing of the person who just ate.
So I just didn't realize it wasn't originally like this.
Your squad could be an alien, but they also think you could be an alien.
I mean, that makes sense, honestly. Because a lot of them are going through some shit right now, and they're like, I don't know who I can just stay away from me. I would be doing that, honestly. Wouldn't you?
It's like rabies. If someone is
I'd have stolen the helicopter
they can
and
now
left
be
by
the
now.
enemy. Oh god. The issue is you've got to keep them around. Engineers are the only class that can open certain doors that you need to progress. If they die in certain fights or lose the infection dice roll, that can be a game over. Keeping medics alive isn't as critical, but in the old resource-starved version, they were certainly a lot more helpful.
Well, yeah,
soldiers are okay, but everyone shoots accurately now, and even in the original, they weren't that beneficial. Another gun is another gun. However, they won't follow you or your orders if they don't trust you. Similar to Fear, you need to give them weapons and ammo, and they need to see you kill aliens. Because if you're not fighting alongside them, that does seem pretty suspicious. To fix that, you can use a rare blood testing kit on yourself. And Jesus Christ, get some apple juice or something. Same goes for your team. If you think they're full of shit and maybe huskies, you can pull out a 2-liter Fanta of blood.
Alright, let's do this!
You wouldn't betray me, Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yeah, that's right, you're a gamer. In the original game, this had a major problem. There were some boss fights and locations where the squad AI wasn't quite good enough to participate. So every so often, a man would just explode into being the thing, and it could happen despite your best defense efforts.
Alright, let's do this.
Yeah, that's my Collins. No known allergies. Come, my narcoleptic but otherwise healthy friend. Collins?
Oh,
God damn it, you just got your shot! He could have been naturally infected before that point, but when he gets there, he's turning. But these special triggers always happened in the same spot.
That kind of sucks,
though. If you knew them, you took care of them early. But now with the remaster, you can see something crazier than the man river dancing. Collins can now walk all the way down this hallway and help with the boss fight. All the scripted infections are gone, which is a huge improvement. We can win as a team now.
Yeah.
What? No!
AI.
Collins, how did... Oh. Damn it. Yeah, there are still areas where they can't follow you for some reason, but there's
them getting infected would suck, though.
No more
especially if
testing
you're
and
relying on
3
them.
seconds later. In fact, while the squad screen only has 4 slots, it's all based on proximity, so I had 5, 6, 7 units in a squad at once.
Oh, goddamn!
With more people, I saw things that I had no idea could happen in the trust system.
Yeah.
Like an engineer I found who really did not like the looks of me.
Oh, he started freaking out and started to...
That is such a cool feature. What it doesn't fix is that blood testing is still mainly a waste of time. Squad members are still helpful until they turn into a monster, and so testing a monster just reveals them in that moment. They can't pickpocket items off of you or blow you away with a gun if they're still disguised. It's possible they could add that in, but the reality is most people would probably think some kind of bug was happening if their squad mate suddenly shoots them in the face. And with the infection-prone combat there is, that can mean a lot of friendly fire happening. A blood test is still best used to make people trust you and not much else. That and the trust system itself still has some holes in it, like friendly fire can happen. Oh shit, that was gnarly. I mean more executing your men one by one with no testing. It still seems to be tracked individually, so if you shoot someone in the leg, then yeah, they'll trust you less. But they won't bat an eye at 40k style cowardice corrections. But hey, your guys no longer turn to a monster for no reason. We made it, men.
We got gold die.
Okay. All the squad stuff works better than it used to. Works better than opposing force. So for an improved, albeit easier game, it can be fun and interesting, but there's still some baggage.
That would be a good game.
The act of running around shooting thing beasts with your squad feels more smooth and responsive than ever. And while limited, there are some sections that really take advantage of you being clever with your squad. Like one where you wake up in a lab with no weaponry, patrolling monsters, and just a few cameras. You have to carefully time crossing the hallway, find someone with a weapon and make them trust you, and then build your group and equipment back up, relying on them to protect you. From there, scope out certain doors using a camera, send a squad member ahead, and then cover them with a remote turret. It's the kind of thing I wish the game had more of, especially now that it's more functional. But it's mostly murder hoboing, and the last third of the game is murder hoboing soldiers. There are still some creatures around, but what made the game unique starts falling off more and more. Also, compared to creatures, it's a lot harder to buy soldiers running around aimlessly. Before, you could probably tell the enemy AI was iffy, but at this point, you know it for sure. Plus, there were a few times where my own squad bugged out and stopped following me, and I had not seen that happen in the old version. There are some new bugs this time around, though thankfully I didn't run into too many. Speaking of those, the boss fights have had shockingly little changes to them. One, you are supposed to dodge.
It's still looking freaky to me.
Circle strafe, but if you got close to it, it can never hit you. It has the exact same problem here. Or that awful little ledge in this fight. And I don't think they kept these to be authentic either, because they did remix some later objectives like the C4 hangars, which seemed like a weird change to me compared to something obviously awful like the staircase. It's a very uneven game at its core, but only a 4 to 7 hour one, so it doesn't drag out horribly. There are still solid improvements that could be made, but they're not going to change what the game is. An okay 2002 third-person action shooter, with some cool and ambitious ideas that are executed better here,
they
but
are.
too much convenience
Are
to
all those
sacrifice
things.
some needed friction, which could be put back in. Maybe in some kind of new mode called Chess Wizard or something.
Chess
As for the
Wizard.
story, there's some clear patterning off of Aliens, which isn't a bad idea if you're going for a sci-fi horror sequel. If this game was called The Things, that'd be appropriate. The military ultimate badasses come in and get more than they bargained for. There's a company up to some mischief. The main problem is, Aliens built on the fear of Alien. The alien could be anywhere, and now there's an entire hive of them. It was already established how awful one was, and now the chances are higher that it could be around any corner. Sure,
That's a good
because
point.
it was an action movie, a lot would be shot in the face, but they still threatened or would pick off characters you were invested in. The threat of the thing is that it can be anyone. But you don't have a strong cast of characters for the game here, you have endless red shirts for the meat grinder.
Yeah.
And Blake himself is like a living men's deodorant commercial.
Who's the cargo for?
I don't know, but it sure ain't the Red Cross.
A Thing game where you were in small locations with characters you were invested in could really work. The ones here are interchangeable on your quest to smite more headcrabs. Even from a world-building angle, a lot is still unclear. It seems to take place right after the movie, so there was always a hidden corporate military base down here studying the aliens. They're
Looks like
experimenting
it.
with it to do something, but it's all kept vague. You
I
do
think
find
they're probably using it to become immortal because it can do
the fates of some
flesh-changing
movie
BS.
characters, especially if you explore around. But I don't
No,
find the
yeah,
story
it's just some
interesting enough,
stupid
good or
weaponization
bad, to
shit.
It's either weapon or immortality. It's usually those are the ones they immediately go to.
dig into. The one exception is a single line written by the Thing. In context, this would taunt Blake as he dies.
Oh.
The creature is always a survivor, but taunting goes a bit beyond that and is a little more human. Was it always like that, or has it spread to enough people that it's starting to get our tendencies for some reason? It wanted to
That's
spread
kind
and
of
survive,
horrifying.
but you didn't get much motivation beyond
The thing
that.
about the thing is,
Actually,
you
it's
don't
not
know
clear
your
if it didn't want
thing
to spread, it might have just wanted to escape.
until
The whole movie is about guessing
your cover's blown, more or less.
Wait, they don't even know?
They're very good method actors.
everyone's
dear
motivation, so
God.
I found this tiny bit of
They
malice interesting.
perfectly
Other than
imitate
that,
the people
I got
involved
nothing.
until proven otherwise.
Oh.
Remember, no Norwegian.
No
It is
Norwegian.
fascinating this game is chosen to be brought back. I do think it's more prime for remake over remaster territory, but it
Fun fact, I actually played that mission and remember that mission. No Russian.
I didn't. I was never a Call of Duty kid.
I played that game. Yeah, I remember that mission specifically. No Russian. It's a horrifying mission, and they tried to repeat it. They tried to basically remake it in one of the newer Call of Duties, but it didn't work
could
because it
generate
didn't have the
interest in
same
making other
impact.
games in the IP, or
And they
bring
were-
back
like,
games like
there was a
back in
lot-
the day,
we'll have
it
the
was,
GOG
It was a lot more softballed, if you know what I
link
mean.
pinned in the comments, but
it was what
$30
the
asking
anti-video game
price
crowd
is too
was
high.
going to.
At least if you're buying the game purely
It was
for the
really
game.
controversial
I think
back
even
in the
$20
day.
bucks would
Yeah,
still be
the
a
problem
maybe.
is they want to
But
have
if you
that same
the
effect,
income
but
and
are
wanna support
obviously
Night
too
Dive, then go for it.
worried about
Because
actual
I would much rather
controversy.
interesting games like this get brought back
Also,
with
it was
touch-ups
skippable
compared to
originally.
games that are still perfectly fine to play that don't need this kind of treatment. Projects like this and Killing Time are weird choices, and I'm glad to see them back with so many improvements.
I am glad to
Hopefully
see
this
them
one will
back.
get some more post-launch support. And I've still got a lot of catching up to do with my regular schedule. This
Little
was
kid me would obviously never play this because he was scared of most things, but yeah.
a nice and sometimes awful break from that. But
But
I'll
it's
see
still
you next
nice to
time.
see it.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's a clip from the movie.
Probably.
You just heard the sound effects of this. Okay, let's time for the questions.
Where's the Oni video? The worst is I've had the entire game recorded for a year or two now. I
Oni
ended up
Musha?
missing Bungie Day this year, and it doesn't quite connect with the others like the other Bungie titles do. It has interesting stuff to talk about, but other things came
Oh,
first.
it's another Bungie
Blake
game.
and Vampire Hunter, or Van Helsing 2004, easy Van Helsing.
It might
And I'll
also
talk
be
more
the
about my role at
awesome
Hooded
naval
Horse.
intelligence
I wouldn't
Halo.
be able to explain it well in this brief time.
Roll
The
as a
short
Hooded
version
Horse.
is I'm on the leadership team, I talk to internal devs about their projects, and I do scouting work for new games, and there is some cool stuff in the pipeline. That's the short version, since in this industry, you do wear a lot of hats sometimes.
Yeah.
How do I discover the bizarre adventure games I've played? I still get
Yeah.
viewer recommendations, but the easiest way is dig through Steam or dig through archive websites and find games that there's basically no information on.
Really?
It means you will trawl through a lot of uninteresting nothing, but eventually, you'll find something weird in there. Like I said in the Cabela's video, more is coming, Halloween just can't contain it.
I'm locked, loaded, and ready to make shit dead.
Who talks like that?
I do when I want to see it sound cool. All right, yeah, that looked pretty interesting.
Yeah, which actually you might want to play the game now, considering you can get the remaster. I think you can get it on Steam.
Yep. So what's up next? Suction Cup Man?
Yeah, I guess so, if that's what you want to do next.
Sure, there's a playlist, and I think overall it's about 20 minutes for the entire four set.
But since we're at the end of this, thank you all so much for coming by. If you like what we're doing here, please do go ahead and, come by whenever you want.
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all later. Have a good night, and yeah, help support the channel. Later, guys.
Yep.